do it and hope that other people join. But I want to point out something, that reports of torture, have not just started. Probably they're gaining prominence because of social media. We cannot rule out the impact that social media has done or had on amplifying these calls. Because, they were there right from the time their peak, in my view and observation, into detention centers that no one knew about. And most of them, when they came out, the lucky ones that came out, when you listen to their tales, how they narrate the ordeal, the pattern seems to be the same to what we've seen now from Kakwenza and the NUP coordinator from Kasese. So it's a challenge for everyone, and that's why personally I decided to speak out, and it's not the only issue that I speak out, and I just want to use the platform that I have to play my role as a citizen. Of course, it comes with risks, but the consolation, if I may call it, is that everyone is a potential victim. You don't have to first tweet for you to be a victim of torture. We've seen cases where, say, a top government official is interested in a piece of land. The owner of the piece of land is not willing to sell. Then they get the owner of the land and is taken through very terrible things. So everyone is a potential victim. The earlier everyone joined in the push for this to end, the better. And everyone needs to do that. I was listening to Godba and was saying that as Ugandans, we need to hold the state accountable. My only concern is that the avenues of holding the president accountable don't seem to be there anymore. Because, like you pointed out, there seems to be an emerging force within the security forces that is too powerful that all the government institutions cannot do anything about it. We've seen the judiciary, how it has responded to this. This Kakwenza case itself, how he was smuggled into court and things like that. Then you remember in the aftermath of the elections, where the police were saying that they didn't know how many people were in detention, and they were asking their sister organizations to compile a list. So there seems to be a force that is too powerful for all the other government agencies, and they're all scared. So that means that the avenues that we had as citizens to run to make our voices heard, they all seem to be scared, and the will at the top for me is not there. The president's fight or his remarks about torture are similar to the remarks that he's made about corruption. He talks about it, but he doesn't go ahead to do actions that really, bring his words into force. When he talks about corruption, you think that corruption is going to be gone the following day. But we all remember, for example, the comments he made about money that disappeared, and he said that the people who stole the money were lucky that it was busy during the campaigns. It makes it very difficult for all of us. That try to intimidate us. Some of these are empty threats, but right now you cannot tell which is an empty threat and which is not. So the gagging of the voices of the citizens is basically to make us scared and hope merchants of fear, because they are hoping one to make sure that torture ends. Someone, that's my brief contribution.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. A senior journalist, and he but all of us as a country, as a continent, as a a special thank you to Mr. Love to hear you out as well on we also have the government space, as well as we had Duncan Abigaba as well on the space. So we have both government officials on this space, members of the opposition as well, civil society, but all of us as a country, we are saying no to torture. Council Nico,
much. I think that we have diagnosed the problem. To my next engagement. For having the balls to speak up, to say and tell what happened to them while in detention. So you embolden those who do these kind of things to do it to the next person. And so just speak up. The second thing really is, for me, my lifelong commitment is the process of accurate documentation of these incidents, because the protection of the state is temporary. It is transient. There will be a time and a place for these individuals to be held to account. But you cannot hold them to account unless we have an accurate account of what they did, who did what, and who did whatever in what role. So the process of documentation, and this is where the media becomes really important. You'd want to go back to the point in time when the Daily Monitor profiled the Black Monday folks who raided the High Court, knew them by name, by rank, by place. You want to go back to the kind of work that people like Ivan did in Teso, documenting people who have suffered heinous crimes. And it is the reason that you don't steal money for Lumbe or money for wedding meetings. Only the brave steal it. but very few do, because it's a tight system of social accountability. When the children you are sending away to universities here in the US, I know of numerous government officials whose children are here in the US universities, are confronted by their own classmates to say, your father is doing this. When your girlfriends and wives who shop in Dubai and cannot go downtown are confronted by their relatives and say, our in-law is doing this, it's a powerful tool of accountability, social accountability. I know of some people who are on this call who had to transfer their kids from some school in the city because young kids in primary school were beginning to confront these children about their father having committed a crime in the city. I stand is that torture is bad and whoever has committed acts of torture must be punished. Arrested myself in Chireka. There were people who had been in that police facility, which is now run by CMI, for more than 3 years. One of them was a Rwandan gentleman who was almost losing his mind. He was running mad. Let's hold these individuals to account now. And we must reset. We must reset this conversation. All of us must reset because people are angry, people are annoyed. Let's now reset and begin to have a meaningful conversation on what to do. Let's start by freeing all people who have been tortured, who have been detained without trial for hundreds of years. For so many months in the prison cells in our country. We know their names, people who have disappeared during the elections. Let's just release them. Compensate victims of torture. The president said he was going to compensate people that were killed in extrajudicial killings in November last year. None of them has received any compensation. So let's reset this conversation and begin to have meaningful discourse. Free people like Kakwenza. Let Kakwenza go and have his treatment. Really, what is so difficult about Kakwenza going to get his treatment? He's not going to abandon his wife and children and farm and run away. And I think that these three things, if we do them, we may move towards a meaningful process to address the question of torture. I think people like Godba have the courage to speak about bolder, radical things, and I leave it to him to do that. Those are my three suggestions for what I think we have to do. We've also got to. There's this thing about people thinking that somebody from outside is going to resolve this problem. We've seen the bot farm sending out its people to target people who are white attending court proceedings, attacking foreign envoys. The problem of Uganda is not foreign envoys. And the problem of Uganda will not be resolved by foreign envoys. What we want them to do is get out of our way, let us resolve our problem as a country, and be able to confront this problem. But we cannot confront this problem if you're arming people who are killing people on the streets. If you want to engage in that way, I think it is important for us to note that the problem of our country will be resolved by us and by nobody else. And unless we all come together to do it, nobody will do it for us. Thank you, Solomon.
Councillor Nicholas Opio, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate it. I know that it's morning for you and you're just going to start your day. Thank you very much for sparing some time to share your thoughts really on this concerted effort by countrymen and people within the region and the continent and globally against torture that we've seen in the recent past. Councillor Nicholas Opio is a human rights lawyer. He's also the executive director of Chapter 4.
I don't know
He
if
also-
you know that Chapter 4 is closed by the authorities. Court. So I don't know if I'm still the executive director, but thank you for
I know. Councillor Nicholas Opio, thank you for speaking to us. I know that. When is the ruling again?
on the 18th of March.
Okay. Let's wait to hear from the ruling and how it will be. Nicholas Opio, thank you very much for speaking to us and being with us. If you've just joined us, we are all of us having a conversation around torture. We were supposed to have Kakwenza Rukirabashaija here, who has been in the media recently for being tortured after, and charges, of course, against him have been opened, or I think it's offensive communication against the person of the president and Mr. Muhoozi Kainerugaba. That is as detailed by Aaron Kiza, who is the lawyer who was on this call previously. Special thank you to everyone. John Allen Namu, investigative journalist, co-founder and CEO of Africa Uncensored from Nairobi. Thank you very much for being part of the call. Grace Natabalo, thank you as well. Alan Natulinda, thank you very much for all being part of this space. Olivia Komgisha is a journalist. Thank you so much for being part of this space as well. I appreciate everyone who is on this call today. I'm just going to give an opportunity to my senior colleague, Ivan Okuda, who is a lawyer but also a journalist. He has covered several stories around torture. We wanted to also hear from him. Ivan Okuda. Meanwhile, Ofono Pondo, who is the government spokesperson, I have also sent you a request for you to be able to speak to us about what's government's position on torture. Please, as kindly requesting that you accept it. And really, we would love to hear you and hear your voice on this issue of torture. And of course, the Ministry of Security, Government of Uganda is as well on the call. So it would really be interesting to hear from the Ministry of Security officials who are on the call. Would have also loved to hear from Government of Uganda, whose official account is also on the space. Let's hear from senior colleague and journalist Ivan Okuda. Ivan, over to you.
Thank you, Solomon. First, a correction. I am not your senior colleague. You are far more senior than me, and I feel a little overrated when you call me senior. I know you're a modest man, but thank you and congratulations. You've been able to get 1,780 people from different parts of the world for this call. If you were in a conference hall, I think you'd possibly fill beyond capacity the Serena Conference Center or the conference center at Munyonyo. It's not a mean achievement. I think you and the team at the Institute should be proud of yourselves. And I think that in more ways than one, this huge attendance of this discussion is evidence, if any was ever needed, of elite consensus in this country that is emerging against torture and really the gross human rights violations that are happening. As a journalist, or one who used to be more active than I am now, I spend more time in a law firm than with journalistic content. I interacted with torture more intently at the Daily Monitor newsroom. And I think for me, 3 or 4 cases stood out. And for the reasons I will give. One was